So today, as one of the last talks of this conference, which is painfully obvious in this room, I wanted to talk about that we don't have any excuses anymore about building good things for the web. And what I mean by that, I've been a HTML5 evangelist and working on the standards, working in browsers with the implementations, and working with the technology for a long, long time, ever since it more or less came out. And I worked on Firefox OS, the operating system built on HTML5, and I tried to reach people in companies like Apple, and I reached people in companies like Google to actually work with them on these standards. And a lot of times I get the thing that we are just not understanding anymore how much of a gift the web actually is to us. None of us here in this room would have a job without the internet. And a lot of people in places like Africa, in places like Sudan, and countries that are in danger, the web is the only voice that they have to the outside. And we're sitting here and complaining when our computers are not fast enough. And the web, as I know it, as I learned it as a web developer for 18, 17 years now, is in danger at the moment. And it's in danger by native apps on monolithic closed systems. That's one thing that is a totally different form factor. People love apps because they're better, technically, but in essence, they're just consumables. They just make you buy software and buy software again. You cannot charge for a new version of a website, but you can charge for a second version of a game or an app. So I find it even more interesting that more and more apps now put browsers inside their apps, because yeah, I wanted to go to YouTube inside LinkedIn. I didn't want to leave LinkedIn ever again, because I love you so much. This is, to me, just locking people in all the time. Browser dependencies is another thing that people have. I see websites saying, like, you need Chrome for this. And it drives me crazy, because I became a web developer because I wanted to say, you need Internet Explorer 6 for this to be a thing of the past. And we do the same mistake now, again, because this is the cool browser of this day. Government control and lockout. Like in the UK, the government spies on me, in Italy probably as well. This is not good. The internet, to me, was the first media that the government didn't control, not like newspapers and TV and radio. It was not a propaganda machine, and we should fight for this. Corporate lockout. Why can't I buy a book in Google Books in England and then read it in Sweden? It tells me my IP number is not English, so I cannot read this book anymore. When I buy the book in a bookstore, I can give it to other people, anywhere in the world. This is not innovation to me. And walled content gardens. Like, yeah, sure, it's great to upload your photos into Facebook, into Instagram, into all these others, but how do you get them out again? What happens to your photos? Who owns them? And we should be pretty much pissed off about this. But we're not. We're not fighting for it anymore because we're too excited about trying to fight what's happening in native and trying to be as cool as, I don't know, consoles and these kind of things out there. The gift that is the internet, the cool thing that is the web, we've kind of forgotten about this. And I think it's partly because we lost our communication skills. People don't listen to us much anymore. They rather want to know, how many $1 million can I make with this app in the first 2 months? Who's going to buy my app for $18 billion? These kind of things are important. Whereas we as technologists, when we go to people and say, this is not possible, it's really hard to do, or it makes more sense to do it like that, we start not getting listened to as much. And then we actually go into our own world instead, and we build stuff for ourselves. I love this, like with somebody, I'm using Redis so we can handle hundreds of RSVPs per second, why engineers shouldn't build their own winning website. So we over-engineer things, we use every single thing to show off to each other how many cool things we build in our websites. And we keep going to our own happy place where everything works and everything is fine. Because we don't want to think about these grimy users out there that have old computers or bad wireless or bad connections or, God forbid, old phones. This morning in the hotel, I met 2 German tourist ladies. She said, oh, I want to connect to WhatsApp with this wireless here. Can you help me with that? Because obviously I have a computer, so I know about phones and fridges and washing machines as well. So she gave me the phone, and it was an Android on gingerbread. And this was not a woman that was poor or something and got it as a hand-me-down. That was her main phone. This stuff still exists. But we ourselves keep telling us that everybody has an iPhone, an iPad, or an iWatch, a state-of-the-art Android phone, a Retina MacBook Pro, or 2 gigabit connection without data limits. This is the stuff that we seem to be assuming that people are using. Because that's what we build products for. Because if you look at the web, it has an obesity problem. The average website is 2 megabytes big. And with 101 HTTP requests, it's if like we haven't done any talk about performance and only any trick about performance ever in the last year or so. This is, we filled the web up with stuff. And this is even with like responsive web design. 54 megabyte responsive web design website. I haven't seen this thing yet because I didn't have a connection that was fast enough to load it fully until I got bored. It's really, really bad that this stuff is online. So to be a modern full stack developer is the other big thing. I remember when web development means like, do you know JavaScript, do you know CSS and HTML, do you have a text editor? Go for it. And that was cool. We made a lot of mistakes, we made a lot of bad code, but nowadays it's all about like, you have to use a task runner, a CSS preprocessor, a package manager, MVC frameworks, unit tests, a modern development environment with reload and 360 inspection. Otherwise you're not a developer. You're not cool anymore, you're not good enough for us. The job descriptions that I see where it's like, you need Angular 2 experience of at least 5 years. It's like, it's a half a year old, great, well done. Or of course you can use the cool magical framework of the month that makes everything much easier, because that's what Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Apple, Mozilla, and other users. And as a developer, I find that boring. I'm like, really? I mean, I did go into development because I want to build things, and I want to build things from small components that I can mix and match. And my career has been probably 20, 30 different environments. I used to write in Perl, PHP, Java, ASP.NET, and I never want to go back to that one. I used to work Cold Fusion, these kind of things. I used PHP and Yahoo on a massive scale, and people think PHP is not good enough. There is no one solution for it. The web is the success it is because it was simple to work on it. It was simple to start. It's easy to get kids to start playing and build their first website, because the technologies is in the browsers and on your machines. And browsers are debugging and development tools nowadays. Not only surfing machines, all of them have great developer tools built in. And power tools like task runners, like package systems, like package managers. I'm not saying these things are bad, but these are for experts. Telling people that you need them before you even start developing is just breeding a whole generation of developers that just use things they don't know what they're doing. And that's how we get these obese websites, and that's how we get systems that just don't work. We need to stop gorging on technology and innovation and build for people who are not us. Don't look at your colleague's computer and say like, oh, it works on that one, fine. Go to a hotel lobby, go to a library, go to these old computers, look over people's shoulders how they use computers and how they use smartphones, how they use tablets, and then you actually learn that you're building for somebody completely different out there. And it's very rewarding doing that. When people start using your things, you're like, this is really cool. And you find mistakes that you never thought of. Like, error, I love it when people are still scared of computers, because they still are. You see a database error message on the screen, oh, I must have done something wrong. You cannot do anything wrong to cause database error unless you try an XSS inject or something like that. But people are like, oh my god, I'm too stupid for these computers, they're better than me. And we cannot simply assume that people make better products just because we give them power tools. That doesn't happen all the time. Case in point, my gym in London the other day got a refit, and it looks now beautiful, of sorts, and it's using Angular. And Angular tells us everybody, oh, it's the best thing ever, client-side rendering, templating, much, much faster than anything else. So I tried it out, and this is on my connection at home. So first of all, the menu.title there is now replaced with Welcome to Blizzard Leisure Center after 7 seconds. And the whole page takes about, was it 13 seconds to load or something like that? Doesn't sound like much, but on my mobile phone, on a limited connection, that is an eternity. And that is really, really annoying. And I don't see it as innovation when I see, instead of the name of something, I see curly, curly, brace something. I turned off error messaging in my PHP pages because I don't want to see code. People should not have to see that. They also want to know what the name of the gym is. Of course, the problem might be that nowadays, as we're told, everything that we release is only used on smartphones because nobody uses desktop computers anymore. Nobody in this room has a laptop. Everybody just uses a smartphone, as we know. Let's see if the optimized version for the web is better, for the mobile web. Well, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, starts resizing randomly, puts the venue title thing in there again, changes it to the real title, gives me the map, gives me the opening times, and it's still going and going and going, and that's 23 seconds. So just saying you use a framework and you have a better result is just a fallacy. You still have to understand what that framework does, and you have to use it for the right way, in the right way. And I hate that when companies invent things and then they put them into products just to put them into products. When blogger.com became a single page, that did not make any sense. If anything on the web is a static page, then it's a blog. Because you want to link to these different pages. You don't want to see a spinner and loading and redirecting and these kind of things. So modern web design is a very cool term. You always get these websites like, oh, it's changed the background, have a jQuery animation for that. And what is modern web design? That's like, it needs to be something different, static pages. And I found this one the other day, which I just found gorgeous. It just got you loaded, and it spins, and you scroll more and more, and it's got opacity, and then it's got more spinning, and then it goes into 3D space, and it spins a bit more. And it gets more things in there. It's like, oh my God. It's like somebody getting PowerPoint for the first time and trying every single thing out because they don't know how to give a presentation. And this is life. This is GoChat.us. And somebody thought this is a good idea to put on the web because we have all this technology. Let's use all of them in one product. That makes the product better, right? Use all colors in our coloring tool. Maybe I'm just a tainted, grumpy, and old coder, and I hate modern architecture. Maybe I've seen too much, maybe I've been around for too much. But I want to go back to that passion that we have for the web. I want to have that passion that anybody is allowed to build things for it, because the innovation that came out of people that just did random things on the web was gorgeous and still is gorgeous. So telling people this is the one way to build an app, if you don't have a parallax scrolling page anymore, you might as well not release it. Horse shit. There's always an audience for something, and not everything has to look the same. And modern is to me the most nonsense term out there. What does modern mean? Like HTML was modern, table layouts were modern, like Flash panels were modern. Every 2 months there's something new that's modern, and we label everything with that, implying that everything before that is not modern anymore and a stupid idea by now. We're chasing fashion, and that everybody in fashion knows that you define a new fashion every few months so you sell more products. So we're just getting pushed into consumerism of software. And software by default should be flexible enough to deal with anything out there. You shouldn't have a fashion for certain designs. It should make sense now and in 10 years as well. Tools will fail you, but knowledge doesn't. Like if you know your tool and you use it, good. But don't fall for the trap and say like one library and one framework will be everything. I feel for all the people that go from Angular to Angular 2 now, because there's so many changes in that. All these changes make total sense, but most of these people that just saw like, oh, Google does it, it's gotta be big, it's gotta be simple, we gotta use that now, will have a rude awakening, because all of a sudden they have to do something completely different. Same with Bootstrap 2 to Bootstrap 3, YUI 2 to YUI 3. The whole thing of an evergreen library does not exist. Make mistakes, repeat and improve. We all make mistakes. I love making mistakes because then they hurt and you don't do them again. I can share this now. I arrived yesterday from San Francisco after not sleeping for 25 hours, and I've done probably the most stupid thing I've ever done in my life. I got into my room, the room is really small, so I got this backpack and the jackets and everything. So I went in, hung my jacket up, put my backpack in, went to the bathroom as you do after 20 hours on the plane, and then I went to bed. And next morning I woke up, where's my suitcase? And I had left it outside my room. So I know now I put my suitcase in every single time because that shock I don't want to have anymore. Making mistakes is okay if nothing happens out of it. And none of us are gonna release rockets or like a deadly virus onto people if we forget a semicolon. It's fine, we can make mistakes in our code. And nobody's gonna fire us because we need more developers than we actually have. So be bold about what you do. Our jobs are never boring and there's so much to do. The web is so broken. There's so many terrible things out there that I want to change, but I don't get the access to them because we're too excited inventing new JavaScript libraries to do things with each other. So a lot of what we have on the web hurts me as a web developer. This is when you go to America and you apply for a visa. This is the website. This is the #1 image, the first impression you get from the United States of America's technology of 2015. It looks like it's done with front page. It probably is. And the buttons are like this big, and the form doesn't make any sense. There's like checkboxes in the middle of the screen with nothing around them. You're like, what the hell is this thing? Or I had a rental car the other day where I could upgrade to an undefined for only not a number per day. That's a great offer, you know. Like I always wanted to spend not a number. The amount of e-commerce websites where you can enter negative prices and you get money back, it's just amazing. People don't do that. I saw an airline in America had, years ago, it had the air miles as a global JavaScript variable. So you basically signed up for their services, had one flight with them and got status, and then next time you got yourself the cheapest ticket, gave yourself 50,000 air miles in the developer tools and upgraded for free for first class. I flew to America twice for $200, first class, because they didn't log it until some idiot blogged about it. That was also, let's find the necessary action. This is like get online in a hotel that I stayed in Oxford. This is the button to click to go online. The lightest gray on the midless gray. This is the #1 thing to do on this website. It's like, really guys? Or even better, the airport in Barcelona. This is on my phone, gorgeous, isn't it? And the best thing is, for 15-minute internet access, it needed my passport number. So it was actually good that the guy next to me had his passport open on the table and I used his. But seriously, guys, a lot of that has to do with outdated systems not getting upgraded. I understand that. There are systems out there that have been around for 20 years and they just basically did out-of-the-box software and they build it. But the problem with that is that it's not only for me as a developer frustrating because I don't have functionality, but it's actually a security problem. Outdated software is a security issue. That's what the bad guys of the internet attack, because it's not going to get fixed anymore, so I might as well attack it. This is what hackers online look like according to the English press. So if you fix XSS and CSRF things in your website, that's fine, but you also have to fix them against crowbars, because that's the biggest attack vector out there. But it's a problem, because Windows XP machines, unpatched machines, now ICS, Android doesn't get any security updates anymore, so the next botnet will probably be on mobile phones, because Google said, well, it's not worth our while anymore, we have a new operating system, you all should upgrade. And the problem on mobile is the problem we had on desktop, that everybody had to buy a new mobile phone to update, rather than the old ones don't get the updates anymore, and that to me is a step back in technology. By far the #1 reason I got from web developers when it said we have to embrace HTML and we don't want to, we have to support Internet Explorer. And that was always the issue. And that was always the unbreakable problem. There's no way this could ever happen. So it even became a running gag. Like I saw these slides a few times, like how to tell HTML from HTML5, try an Internet Explorer. If it works, then if it doesn't work, then it's HTML5. And that pissed me off, because HTML5 is a technology that is built for backwards compatibility. We put a lot of effort into it to not let the old web go behind. So people who wrote HTML5 should have written HTML5 in a defensive manner, so old browsers still get something, not the same, but something useful. So I did something about it. I joined Microsoft. I left Mozilla and I joined Microsoft because I finally thought I want to be where the Internet Explorer thing happens and where the problems are being made. And I was surprised that the problems are not that much anymore, but actually a lot of what we say in the outer world is not that much of an issue when you look at the numbers of what people use in terms of operating systems and which browsers they use on them. Of course, there's cool innovation to play with, like that HoloLens thing, which is also the Italian gesture simulator. So they're all on stage like that, it's amazing. But the problem that I had was enterprise internet. The people that I meet that have these 20-year-old systems, 10-year-old systems that don't get updated anymore and just target Internet Explorer 8 as the newest and coolest, much like a lot of stuff now targets Chrome as the newest and coolest, is quite high. So I'm spinning a bit right now there. And to me, backwards compatibility shouldn't be a nuisance. Backwards compatibility should be a given on the web. Everybody, no matter where they are, no matter what computer they use, no matter what connection they have, are allowed to be on the web. And it's not up to us to tell them to buy a better browser, a faster computer, or a better connection. It is up to us to write code that makes sense for them, which is a problem with ES6 and other new technologies because they're syntactically different to the old ones. So old browsers will just say a syntax error, so we have to think about that, and I gave another talk about this the other day. So we need to support Internet Explorer, to me, is not an excuse for lazy, bloated, and code any longer. And I want to fight this, and that's why I'm here. Because of Project Spartan. Project Spartan was hinted earlier a bit before. I'm working with the team a lot, and I was very excited when I saw it the first time. What is Project Spartan? Originally, Internet Explorer 11 had the legacy support until Internet Explorer 5.5, and it had a compatibility mode and all kind of stuff. So it was a mess. It was trying to do everything, and it tried to do the new technology and the old technology, and the amount of bloated code in there was ridiculous. So there's a new engine called Edge HTML, which has an interoperability with Firefox and Chrome on the same levels. It's the default engine for Windows 10, and it's for modern HTML websites. So Windows 10 will have both of them in there. One of them more or less hidden only when it's needed, but Spartan is the #1 browser for Windows 10. Project Spartan is a product name. It's a project name. It's not the final name of the browser. Otherwise, I would have to give all my presentations like bare-chested and kick people off stage and like this is Spartan and things. So we didn't want to do that. So we had to find a different name, which I don't know yet. But Project Spartan sounds awesome to me, so I'm using that one. So what does it mean? It's an out-of-the-box browser of Windows 10. Every Windows 10 user will have Spartan as the main browser and will have to jump through hoops to find the old Internet Explorer, but we have to keep it in there for enterprise users that have things that are relying on them, like our booking systems inside Microsoft. It's an evergreen browser, means it's independent of the Windows version update, and that was the big thing that made me like, yes, I want to support this. So we finally have a browser that is not like, if you're not on Vista, then you're not getting this browser, or you're not on Windows 8, then you're not getting this browser. This was an evergreen engine inside Windows, and it will be updated according to what is necessary, and not having to wait for every new Windows version. Windows itself is becoming a service as well, so that's another change there that's going on. Also, there's a free upgrade from Windows 7 and 8 and 8.1 to Windows 10 for the first year now. What happens then, I don't know yet. It's an excellent standard support. So if you look at the standard support comparison tables, the Edge HTML engine is massively good there, especially with the SVG stuff, and 3D transformations on CSS work really well. It's leading in the ES6 compliance. So if you look at the ES6 compatibility charts, Edge is the one that has like 87% of the standard, and Firefox I think like 82. It's not much different, but a lot of stuff is happening in there. And it's fully hardware accelerated. That's another big thing, so you don't need to do the translate set0 to put another layer in your animations because it's not hardware accelerated. And it's on desktop, mobile, and tablet. So it's the same browser on everywhere where Windows 10 runs, including Raspberry Pi, which I'm quite excited about because it brings mine to England. So friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears, because I need you to help me with this. I don't care if you like Chrome or Firefox better. Please have fun. As long as it's an evergreen browser, I'm happy. As long as you don't tell me I have to use this old thing, I'm not as happy. So if you want to try out Spartan and you want to try out Windows 10 and you don't want to buy it yet or don't want to install it yet, there's inside.windows.com, which allows you to download VMs. I'm trying it on my Mac a few times in a virtual image. Cool. Don't need to do. There's also Remote IE. If you don't want to install anything on your computer, you just connect to that one. It's an Azure image that runs Windows 10, so you can use it there. And of course, there's all the browser testing, like Browser Storm and all kinds of things out there. If you have something that you really, really love in Chrome, that you really, really love in Firefox, and you want to have in there, there's a user voice, www.uservoice.com, where you can ask for things that IE should have, and you get answers there. We don't have a Bugzilla because we don't want people to fill out 10,000 form fields. We use user voice, the same as Mozilla does as well now. And even if you don't care, please make the web better for all. Even if you don't want to support Windows, and I understand if you do, I don't care really, but you cannot just say, I only support Chrome, because it's exactly the same mistake we did with Internet Explorer 6 and 7, and that's why the web is such a mess. So please support all the browsers. And there's a great thing as well in statusmodern.ie. You see which of the new standards are in which browser, and when you click them down, you actually see which other browsers as well. Not only Internet Explorer, but also Firefox, Chrome. And we're working with all the browser makers to keep that thing up to date. And there's an INTEROP status that shows you which browsers support the thing that you're doing right now. Use these things where there's tick boxes everywhere, and you will make a wonderful, wonderful web for everybody out there. There's not a single player or winner of the web. Like, been here for 17 years and I've seen people come and go. I remember when Flash developers told me that I'd be out of a job in 2 weeks because nobody writes HTML anymore. I've seen Silverlight come and go, Java applets. Like, all these kind of things are just fleeting moments in our history. And it's cool because you have to force yourself to learn new things all the time as well. So all browser makers talk to each other and find similarities and support. We actually, just a standard by definition, needs 2 browser engines to be implemented in, otherwise it's not a W3 standard. So when people came up to me and said, like, why doesn't Firefox use Blink? Because then we have only one engine out there and we have a monopoly again. And we never know what comes out of monopolies, but actually most of the time bad things. Chrome is implementing Microsoft's pointer events that came out 2 days ago. After Chrome said, like, a few months ago that pointer events are stupid and we're not going to do that because touch events are good enough. But now we convinced them, or the teams talk to each other, that pointer events are now supported in Chromium and in IE, and we hope that others are following as well. If you don't know, pointer events are actually telling you what happened to the browser. Because right now I made an interface, I have to add a click handler, I have to have a touch handler, I have to key down handler, I have to, all the things that might be possible that people use your website with. With a pointer event, you listen to a pointer event, it tells you what the event was. A mouse was clicked, a key was pressed, a pointer was touched at it, a finger went on the screen. We had to do this because we're the only ones evil enough to build things like the Surface, which is a touch, mouse, screen, pointer thing in one thing. So I think, to me as a developer, it makes sense, because the gesture, the sensual input will become more and more. I mean, think about VR, think about gesture things like Kinect. There's so many cool things that people will use computers with in the future. I don't want to have a different event handler for all of them. Angular 2 is powered by Microsoft TypeScript. We saw that earlier in another talk here as well. So Angular realized that JavaScript is not good enough, it's not strict enough, it's not defined enough for what they want to do. So they did their own ad script, while Microsoft wrote TypeScript because everybody's in competition with each other. And now Angular said, like, you know what, TypeScript does exactly what we want to do. So AngularJS is running on that one. On the other hand, Microsoft implements Adobe's blend modes for SVG and CSS. They gave that to Blink, they gave that to WebKit. Why should we write that on our own? So they were the first company to submit code into Internet Explorer, and that is a groundbreaking difference to the past. There was always this black box that nobody could touch. Now other companies put code in. If you want to know things, read up-to-date information and learn instead of copy and paste. And I cannot tell you more than just go to developermozilla.org. That's where I write all my code. That's where I do all my things. So it's a very, very important thing to do. And it's also an editable resource. If you find something that annoys you, edit it. Do something about it. Don't complain on Twitter that it's wrong. Write it. It's like there's a whole editorial staff behind it that does it to you. And MDN is also a resource that teaches you while you're looking it up. There are other resources that are simpler. W3 Schools, if you know your stuff, awesome. It's just like, oh, I forgot the syntax of that. Good. But it teaches you really bad practices. It teaches you the how, but not the why. Like, how do I do this? Okay, I copy and paste this. I don't even know what I'm doing. You also want to understand the why if you really want to learn. Same with, like, I keep talking about the full Stack Overflow developers that just go to Stack Overflow, ask something, copy and paste it into their code, and then wonder 2 months later why it doesn't perform, because they don't know what they copied in there. You don't do that with emails and send them to random family members. Don't do that with computers either. Check back for browser interop. There's a great site called caniuse.com, which you type in whatever you want to use, and it tells you which browser supported on which platform in which country, and so on and so forth. Wonderfully maintained. It's a guy in Adobe doing it, and it's one of my resources that I go all the time, because there's so many headlines like, oh, Microsoft does not support WebGL. Somebody asked me that 2 weeks ago, like, do you not support WebGL? And we're like, for like 8 months now. So keep up to date, and this is one of those up-to-date resources that you can look at. And browsers can't get better if you need to cater to old mistakes. If you keep saying, like, you need Chrome, you need Safari, you need Internet Explorer for a certain site, or Firefox for a certain site, you are doing it wrong. There is no way your end users should suffer because you're being lazy. The technologies are supported across the browsers now. And if they're not, then you might then think about, do you really need that technology? Do you really need that feature? Or is it just because you want to use it? We get very excited about developer convenience, and we forget that user experience is actually what brings us money, what brings us people, what makes people happy. Our job should be to allow people to have tasks that they have and solve them online without much hassle. That's all of what we have to do. If we have to jump through hoops for that, that's our job. That's why we get paid a lot of money. Not because end users should change because we want to use that new library or whatever. So when I talk to browser makers, and that includes Firefox, that includes Chromium, and also now the IE team, what are the main problems that we have? Why are browsers bloated? Why are browsers problematic? It's because people make these mistakes. User agent sniffing is the spawn of the devil. It's the most stupid thing you can ever do, because a user agent is just a pack of lies. The user agent gets longer and longer every year whenever a browser comes out, because we have to put backwards compatibility stuff in there. Every browser has Mozilla in it. If every browser user string has something with Mozilla in it, and you're like, what? But we had to do it because otherwise websites would not render properly because they checked for a user agent. Reliance on experimental features. -WebKit, -MOS, -MS. These things are cool. These things are great for testing things out, but they should never end up in your production code because they change. Experimental means they will change from under you, and there's no way to complain about it because they're experimental. And the amount of like white buttons with white text that I find because it's only WebKit gradient background, that's just stupid coding. That's just lazy coding. Most new browsers now stopped with the prefixes and instead have flags. So if you want to try them in your browser as a developer, you have to turn on the flag and then you can actually do it, which is great because you can experiment with the stuff without your end users suffering broken websites. Blind reliance on many, and in many cases, battling third-party libraries. The amount of people who have like jQuery and Angular and 10,000 things in the same page because they like one widget on each of them bloats the web and makes it terrible. It's like running 12 different virus scanners on your computer and wondering why it's slow. It's kind of the same thing. Reliance on hacks without removal. So a lot of times we got very excited about like, I found a problem with Safari and now I use this thing in CSS and that fixes it. Cool. Safari 2 months later is being patched, don't need that hack anymore. That hack stays on the web forever. Somebody else sees that hack, copies and pastes it, we copy and copy and copy, and then people say CSS is not maintainable. Yeah, if you don't maintain it, it becomes unmaintainable. That's how simple as it is. Badly designed dependency management, this needs jQuery 102. I've seen that, like outdated libraries being dependent on, numbers being read. I love when every browser that I worked for went from 9 to 10, because the amount of websites breaking or giving you features for Firefox 1 instead of Firefox 10 because they just checked for one number. It's incredible. Undocumented and badly organized products. I mean, this is a general thing. Document your stuff. It sounds silly, but the idea of a self-explaining code is rubbish because it just means the person maintaining it should be as clever as you are and have the same thought patterns, which is basically you and nobody else out there. I love having some documentation that makes sense. If you need an extra function that has a sensible name rather than having 12 anonymous functions into each other because you saved 20 bytes that way, not a good plan. And last but not least, unblock the pipes, please. The web is slow because we put lots and lots of stuff on it. And a lot of times we don't need that stuff anymore because browsers moved on, our users moved on. They don't have these browsers that need these fixes, that polyfill, that old library anymore. If you don't know what to do with that, because it's a massive topic, there's a great website called webpagetest.org. And what you do at webpagetest.org, you put a URL in, you select a server from anywhere in the world, or wherever they're there, it's like lots of them in Europe, Asia, and so on. You click on the server and which browser you want to test in. Then you select the browser that you want to test in, and that includes Nexus 5s and mobile phones and iPhones and so on and so forth. You define the speed that you want to test with, and then you start running your test. And once the test is done, you get scores for everything you've done. Everything that's an F or a D or an E is a bad idea. You need to do something. Clicking on those gives you the idea what to do, how to fix it. You get a whole set of information, what happened to your website and when. You actually know when you need to compress images, which image is uncompressed, how much you could save. Leverage browser caching from assets, put them onto different subdomains, and so on and so forth. So there's a whole truckload of information in that in a very, very simple fashion. And it tells you where you loaded too many, and then you all of a sudden realized while you were shaving 200 milliseconds of your JavaScript, you got a 5 megabyte image in there, And you even get a video that shows you how long it took to load the page. These are the videos that I showed you earlier from the other websites. And this is something to go to your boss with and say like, you know what, we could fix that in a week. How about we make our website 10 times faster and get so and so many people out there? And there's lots of research about making websites faster, giving you more users, because yeah, they don't like waiting. We never do. So let's go and build great products for everybody. Every framework tells you about the minimal viable product, but I think we should build more minimum lovable products because we have the skill set, we should be listened to, and we have the technology definitely is there. We just pretend it doesn't exist, or we pretend that everybody has the technology to come and not the current one. The web is a wonderful platform, and the web is actually a wonderful, diverse platform, and that's what made it interesting for me for the last 17 years, and it will keep keeping me interesting, rather than a fixed environment where everything is done for me, but it's outdated next month. And that's all I had, so grazie. Thank you.